Widzew Łódź is one of the most successful teams in Polish football. The team from central Poland won 4 league titles and enjoyed quite a lot of European football. Most famously, they beat Juventus in the UEFA Cup back in 1980 and went to the European Cup semi-final in 1983, knocking out Liverpool on the way. However, the 21st century was far from ideal for the club, culminating with a bankruptcy in 2015. The fans rebuilt the club from the ground up, starting from the 5th year and finally returning to the top flight in 2022. After a few years in the mid-table, a billionaire and a club supporter, Dobrzycki, took over the club in 2025. This acquisition brought new hope to the club and the fans started dreaming of a new golden age. But now, after 29 matches have been played, Widzew is on the verge of relegation. How did this happen? Let's talk about it. In 2015, Widzew Łódź officially bankrupted after years of financial mismanagement. This meant that the club was about to basically disappear from football. However, the fans and local entrepreneurs did not want to see it happen, and soon after, they created a Phoenix Club. Thanks to its historical significance, the new Widzew could start in the 5th year of Polish football. And thanks to having a huge and dedicated fanbase, the city opened a brand new stadium with 18,000 capacity. Although the road back to the top flight was very difficult, Widzew was slowly but surely climbing up the rankings. The club won promotion to the 4th year in the first time of asking, then became a 3rd-year side in 2018 and joined the 2nd division in 2020. Right after wasting a chance to get promoted in spectacular fashion the year before. They drew 10 games in a row right after the winter break in 2019. Widzew finally fought its way back to ekstraklasa in 2022, finishing that season's 2nd division in 2nd place. Since that time, the club's run has been full of ups and downs. The team mainly sat around mid-table, but still had its share of memorable moments. Some of them include sitting on 3rd in the winter of 2022, a first win over Legia in 24 years in early 2024, with a 92nd minute winner from Fran Alvarez, mind you, or breaking the league attendance record with over 20,000 Widzew fans joining 30,000 fans of Ruch Chorzów. The 2024-25 season was meant to be more of the same for the club, which has now pretty much established itself in the top flight. After the winter break, Widzew was 9th in the league, and despite the fact ekstraklasa is extremely unpredictable as we all know too well, there was no real prospect for Widzew to either go to Europe or get relegated. Widzew was on a path of slow and steady progress. Every year, we were ready to see Widzew go up the league table by 1 or 2 places, with a chance to play for European football when the right opportunity arises. But things were about to change in early 2025. Before we continue though, if you enjoyed this video so far, I would like to ask if you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to help boost this video up the algorithm. Thank you, and now let's talk about what changed in early 2025. Since June 2021, Tomasz Stamirowski, mainly known for his work in investment companies, has been the majority owner of Widzew. During his time, he helped the team find its way back to the ekstraklasa, stabilized the club's finances, and oversaw the start of the construction of the training center. However, despite the fact Tomasz and the club had the resources to scale up, there was a chance to make the progress happen much quicker and on a much larger scale. That's because a certain real estate agent expressed his interest in buying the club. We're talking about Robert Dobrzycki, an entrepreneur and the co-owner of the company named Tony, which develops real estate for industry and storage. What's even better is that Robert wasn't just a random wealthy man willing to just put his money in the world of football. Here, we're talking about the club's supporter from a very young age, so this purchase wasn't just an investment for Robert. On March 28, 2025, Robert finalized the purchase of the majority stake of the club. From this point, he owned 76% of the shares, while Tomasz Stamirowski kept 20% for himself. With the arrival of the new owner, the goal was very simple: win the league and qualify for European League stages as soon as possible, which could only be accomplished faster thanks to the newfound resources. The resources that Robert Dobrzycki declared he's willing to spend if it means an instant improvement of Widzew results. And those resources were brought into the action at the first possible opportunity. Right before the takeover, Widzew changed their head coach. Daniel Myśliwiec, who managed the club since September 2023, was sacked following a streak of winless games. His replacement was a Croatian Željko Šopić, previously managing a selection of his native clubs, Al Ain in the United Arab Emirates and Sabah in Azerbaijan. Željko helped Widzew stay up on 13th, with 3 wins and a draw in 9 games. And so, he stayed on to manage the new team in the new campaign. Why did I say the new team? You may as well have predicted this. With a billionaire in charge of Widzew, the club went all in on the transfer market. I'll start with the free transfers. Lyndon Selahi from Croatian champions Rijeka became the new defensive midfielder. Angel Baena from Wisła Kraków and Antoni Krukowski from Pogoń Szczecin joined Widzew to play on the wing, and Sebastian Berger became a new forward after joining from GKS Katowice. They all joined at the very start of the season, and later in the window, they were joined by Tonio Teklic from Trabzonspor and Pape Mejshaba from Schalke. And now, it's time for the main topic of this video, the transfers for which Widzew paid fees to the other teams. In the order of those fees, starting from the lowest. We're starting with a Danish right back Peter Terkelsen, who already was on loan from Djurgården and now became a permanent player for 100,000 euros. John Gallapeni, a left wing back, joined from FK Pristina in Kosovo for 250,000. Maciej Kikolski from Legia Warsaw became the new backup goalkeeper for 300,000. Ricardo Visos, a centre back from Real Betis, signed for 425,000. The new main goalkeeper was meant to be Veljko Ilić from Bačka Topola in Serbia for 500,000. Samuel Akere from Botev Plovdiv signed for 725,000 to play on either wing. And now it's time for the big sums of money. Stelios Andreu became the new center back. He was signed from Charleroi in Belgium for 1.3 million. Akere was only meant to play as a backup for a Polish under-21 international, Mariusz Fornaciuk from Korona Kielce, who was signed for 1.5 million. But the biggest fee was spent on a striker. That striker is Andy Zekiri, who last played in Standard Liège on loan from Genk and has 18 caps for Switzerland. He joined Widzew for 2 million. The Polish football fans and journalists alike saw this window and instantly started predicting that Widzew will be a European contender at the very minimum. Even I, when randomly predicting this ekstraklasa season, was cautiously optimistic and put Widzew in 5th place. Which, in case someone from the top 4 would win the Polish Cup, would mean Conference League football. But throughout the season, we learned that perhaps Widzew's board was aiming a little bit too high. In the first 4 games of the season, Widzew won against Zagłębie Lubin and GKS Katowice and drew against Wisła Płock. But then, they lost 1-0 to Cracovia and experienced a late 2-1 loss to Pogoń Szczecin. This was not enough compared to the preseason ambitions, and so Željko Šopić was sacked on August 25th after just 6 match days. Just to let you know, he had a contract valid until June 2027. Željko was replaced by his former assistant Patryk Czubak, and I already spoiled it for you. Since this appointment, Patryk was sacked from the club, became Šopić's assistant in NK Osijek in Croatia in November, became the manager of the 2nd division Polonia Bytom in January, and got sacked from there in March after not winning a single match in 7. That's a tumultuous career and a half if you ask me. And in case you're wondering about his performance in Widzew during his short-lived tenure, under Patryk, Widzew won over Arka Gdynia and Termalika Nieciecza in the league, progressed in the cup after winning again over Termalika on penalties, but lost to Lech Poznań, Górnik Zabrze and Raków Częstochowa. This meant Patryk left Widzew on 11th with 13 points in 11 games. But now, the question is obvious. Who is going to take charge as the 3rd manager during this one season? Actually, not even half a season. Igor Jovichevich was chosen as the man for the job. He looked to be a sensible appointment. Igor previously managed the likes of Shakhtar Donetsk and Ludogorets Razgrad and led both teams to their country's league titles. Igor started his tenure strong, with a home 3-2 win over Radomiak. But this was only a promising debut. That's because before the winter break, Widzew only won once more, 2-0 over Piast Gliwice, and only achieved one more draw at home against Legia Warsaw. These results dropped Widzew to be on the verge of the relegation zone. However, this time around, Igor wasn't sacked. He kept his job and could prepare the team for the 2nd round of games. The amount of new signings didn't lead to any improvement of results. In fact, they made it even worse. So there was only one solution. Bring in more players, enough to almost create a new starting 11. And Widzew started the winter transfer window. They started it by absolutely shattering Poland's transfer record by bringing on Osman Bukhari for 5 million euros from the MLS. No other team in Poland spent nearly as much on a player as Widzew did in this winter. But this was also just the very start. On goal, Widzew brought in Bartłomiej Drągowski, a Polish international with Serie A experience, most recently at Panathinaikos. Carlos Izak from Cordoba became a new right back for 1 million. Przemysław Wiśniewski, another Polish international, joined from Spezia for reportedly as high as 4 million euros. Steve Kapłady, a solid center-back from Legia Warsaw, joined for another around 3 million, becoming a new record signing within the league. Christopher Cenk from Sandefjord became the new left-back for another 900,000. Lukas Lerager was brought in to strengthen the midfield after joining from FC Copenhagen, with whom he just played in the Champions League stage. Emil Kornvik was one of the more key players in the Norwegian side SK Brann, but in the winter he joined Widzew for 3 million. A total fee for those signings? About 16 million euros. To put this into perspective, that's more than the entire La Liga, minus Ademola Lookman joining Atletico late in the window. And the total for the entire season? About 23 million euros. Simply unheard of in the Polish league before. But did those fees lead to Widzew steering away from the relegation fight? No. Just no. No. Before the start of this round, the majority owner Robert Dobrzycki claimed he was not concerned with the relegation fight and looked forward to going up the table. He had every reason to believe that because that's the nature of the Polish league. I mean, the gap between first and last was just 11 points at the time. The problem is, Widzew was now well and truly in the relegation scrap. In the first 5 games after the break, Widzew only won once, over Wisła Płock. The Polish Cup also didn't go too well, as away at Katowice, which barely made it to the penalty shootout, which they lost. Naturally, the board lost patience, and Joviczewicz was sent packing. In case you stopped counting, we are about to have a 4th different Widzew coach during a single season. That 4th coach is Aleksander Wukowicz. Previously, Wukowicz won the 2020 Polish League title with Legia Warsaw and led Piast Gliwice to regular top half finishes. Wukowicz's mission was plain and simple: save the team from going down. He couldn't have had a better start. Widzew achieved a 2-1 win over the league leaders Lech Poznań. The points kept coming in after that win, with 3 draws to Arka Gdynia, Górnik Zabrze and Raków. The hope of staying up kept increasing with a 2-1 win over Nieciecza. And then they lost 2-1 to Radomiak as Lukiniarz scored a 93rd minute winner. With just 5 matches to go in this season, Widzew is still 17th. One of the main criteria, it looks like, when it came to making moves on the transfer market was the player's reputation. Lukas Lerager just played in the Champions League, Emil Kernwik started in all Europa League matches for SK Brann, Andy Zekiri is a Swiss international, and both Bartłomiej Drągowski and Przemysław Wiśniewski played for Poland recently, just to name a few of the transfers. This is part of the reason why Widzew was predicted to fight for Europe, if not the title, before the season by many. But the reputation, as it shows, is not everything. Jagiellonia Białystok, for example, has a completely different way of operating on the transfer market. Their most expensive signing ever is a former Polish youth international Kajetan Schmidt from Zagłębie Lubin for 700,000. He joined this winter to replace Oskar Pietruszewski, who left for a total of 10 million to FC Porto. Jagiellonia are mainly looking for players out of contract and don't usually look for big money signings, which also allows them to make the financial situation secure. And their results are vastly different, with the 2024 league title, a 3rd place and the Conference League quarterfinal in 2025, and this year they're likely to qualify for Europe again and also added a Conference League knockout playoff. The other factor in mind is the price tag for some of the players. Osman Bukhari, for example, joined for a 5.5 million from the MLS. This was record-shattering money for a player in the ekstraklasa. But when you look at Osman's career before coming to Poland, he only scored 3 goals in the entire 2025 MLS season, and his most prolific campaign was when he scored 12 in the 2022-23 Serbian League while playing for Crvena Zvezda, who are dominant in that country. Osman's stint in Łódź also didn't start too well, with 0 goals or assists in the first 6 games. And he wasn't even a part of the squad for a while due to the visa problems. This isn't the end of the bad news though. Just when I was editing this video, the news came out that Widzew is already looking for a new club for Osman for roughly half of the fee the team from Łódź paid. The other factor leading to Widzew's potential relegation is the sheer amount of those transfers. There is simply way too many of them. This forces some of those new signings out of the club after just half a year. Terkelsen is now a free agent, Akere is on loan in Osijek, Jon Gallapeni is on loan in Wisła Płock, just to name a few. In total, for 24 players to join, 24 had to leave. And we're only talking about the completed deals. There were rumors that Widzew was interested in signing the likes of Sambu Sumano from Lorient, Kamil Grosicki from Pogoń Szczecin, Tymoteusz Puchacz from Holstein Kiel, or the centre-back Tomasz Kędziera from PAOK Saloniki. You cannot just sign a ton of players and expect to instantly just win. They also need to understand each other's way of playing the game, they need cohesion, they need to fit in the tactical system. And speaking of the tactical system, changing coaches way too often is also way too risky, at best. Željko Sopić was sacked a little bit too hasty after just 2 losses, and led to the spiral we saw throughout the campaign. Also, every manager has a different style of play, and it inevitably leads to players having to adjust to the new instructions almost instantly, which may lead to more crises like the one we see this season. But what do you think? If your team suddenly got newfound and unheard of before sums of money, what do you think it should do? Spend it on the transfers, building an academy, build some better infrastructure, maybe a new stadium. Speaking of the new stadium, there are plans of rebuilding the current ground to up to 32,000 capacity. And Robert Dobrzycki made it clear he can also buy that stadium from the city. Let me know in the comments down below. There are only 5 games left this season. In them, Widzew is going to play mid-table Motor Lublin, Legia Warsaw who are returning to form and steering away from the relegation fight, Lechia Gdańsk who could still sneak into Europe, especially if they manage to overturn their 5 points deduction, and 2 fellow relegation battlers, Korona Kielce and Piast Gliwice. The gap to safety is already at 3 points, which means winning 1 game more than the rest of the league may not be enough. To make sure they stay up safely, Widzew would need 3 wins at the very minimum. Can they do it? We'll find out within this month.